So those are the two forms that Paul is addressing them. How is this meat sacrificed to the idol? Are you either going to the marketplace and buying discounted meat that's been sacrificed to Apollos, or maybe you're going to Aunt Jill's 95th birthday and eating, some meat that's been sacrificed there. Let me put it in context that we might understand it. If the clubs invited us all to come over to the house, they said, South Liberty Baptist, come over to the hacienda, we're going to have a fish fry. And we're sitting there, and Leon's frying up fish, and Cindy's in there maybe making some coleslaw and potato salad, and just having a good time. And then if Leon pulled a statue of Buddha out, and maybe had one fish he hadn't filleted, pulls that fish out, fillets it open, kind of says a little prayer to Buddha, and then fries it, we would all kind of step back a little bit, like, Leon, what are you doing? That's the circumstance that these people are in. Now they're telling Paul, we have knowledge that there is only one God, and so it's okay for us to go and to participate in whatever weird thing the club's got going on, because we know there's only one God. And Paul replies to them that knowledge is nothing. In fact, in verse 3 he says that, but if anyone loves God, he is known by Him. The Corinthians wanted to put knowledge above love. Jesus kind of faced this same situation a lot of times. In Mark chapter 3, He walked into the synagogue on the Sabbath. Strolled in to maybe sit down and hear one of the Pharisees preached. And as Jesus is walking into the synagogue, He sees a man with a crippled up hand. It says he had a withered hand. And Jesus saw this man sitting there, and Mark tells us that He called the man to come to Him. And as the man was coming to Him, all the Pharisees, all the priests stopped and began to look at Jesus to see, what's this young itinerant preacher going to do? And Jesus, knowing their thoughts as that man was coming over, He looked at them and He said, I got a question for you fellas. Is it better to do good or evil on the Sabbath? To save a life or to take a life on the Sabbath? Mark tells us that they were silent, and Jesus was grieved by the hardness of their hearts, because these Pharisees looked at the Sabbath and said, this is the most important thing we have, that we only walk 77 steps on the Sabbath. And Jesus is looking at a man whose hand is withered. He has no way to make money. And He's saying, you're telling me because it's Sunday, I can't heal this man? Your knowledge is overpowering God's love. We can get caught up in knowledge and maybe achievement, maybe it's power for you, maybe it's a position in your workplace, whatever it is. Paul's going to tell us here that it doesn't matter what drives your life if it's not love. If love doesn't drive your life, he's going to question if you're known by God. Because you were created for God. So the Corinthians here, Paul gets back to this in verse 4 and says, now back to concerning this meat sacrificed to idols. See, the Corinthians, they had this kind of elitist mentality, and they thought with their great knowledge and their theological prowess that this didn't concern them. And so for them, they would be sitting maybe at one of these sacrifices to Zeus, and in the back of their mind they're laughing because they said, well, Paul, there's only one God. There's not more than one God. And so as they're sitting, watching all these people sacrifice animals to Zeus, they're laughing at themselves because they're thinking, you know what, this is ridiculous. There is no Zeus. And by the way, we're getting discounted meat. This is a great opportunity for us. When my brother and I both went to college in Springfield. And one day when we were in Springfield, probably the top 3 strangest things happened to me. We're driving down National Street, which kind of goes right by the college, and we're probably driving to a fishing hole or something. And as we're driving down National, we both look over, and in this field is a whole bunch of people, and they're dressed up in like medieval gear, and they're like fighting slow-mo battles with their axe, and they had trumpeters. And we were just really confused, Kind of stopped and watched them for a little bit and then got a little creeped out, so kept going. No offense, Charlie, I know you're a LARPer. So years later, I figured out what they were doing. It's called LARPing, live action role-playing. And what they do is they get dressed in this battle gear and they roll a set of dice to see what move they're going to make. And then the person that they're fighting rolls a set of dice, and it's just this big display. Now, if some of y'all are interested in this, the Tempest of Treata meets in Kansas City every Saturday. So if this sounds appealing to you, you can dress up and go do this every single week. For me and my brother, this was a strange thing, because we're kind of hunting and fishing into that thing, and these guys were more into, being asthmatic and playing video games all the time. And so for us, it was just like, what are these people doing, But for some people, they live for it every week. They go out to these parties and they grill food, and at the end of it, the winner will hold up a piece of chicken and they will all kind of bow down to him. And that's kind of what the Corinthians thought of these people that are sacrificing to Zeus, that it's made up, that it's just wrong, that it's just a show. And Paul acknowledges that, hey, there is only one God. There is only one Lord. But he leads up to verse 6. He says, yet for us there is but one God, the Father. Paul uses that personal pronoun, the Father. And he says, from whom all things are and for whom we exist. And then he ties Jesus into it and he says, and then there is one Jesus, one Lord, for whom we exist for. We exist through. Paul's making his statement right there that Jesus, that God is the reason that we exist. Google World is a computer program that came out in 2001. And it's really cool. If you've never seen it, it's neat. You can type in, 650 East Ruth Ewing Road, and it'll start in outer space, and it'll kind of spin the globe, and it finds Missouri, and then zooms down on Liberty, and then next thing you know, you can look in the side door and see us in here worshiping right now. And it's all through satellite imagery. It's amazing. Matter of fact, I've got Google Earth on my phone.